All right, our next worksheet, or sheets I should say, are going to deal with payroll and additional inputs. So I'll be going through theirs. I've taken a look. A few of you have submitted your startup anyhow. And by the way, and I should have mentioned, just keep submitting everything in one big workbook. Don't try to send in a different workbook because everything gets tied together. And so I just want to make sure that you're just submitting that as you've made the updates and whatnot. The other thing too that I should mention, one of the things that you might choose to change on the starting point, and that's fine, again, it's in one of these gold, but the interest rates down here, they're ones that were just by default in there, the score put in there. That may be different, okay? It wouldn't surprise me that commercial loans are somewhat less than this right now. Anybody know what prime rate is? Question?
Do these computers need a jump drive?
Do they need a jump drive or will they use a jump drive?
Well, none of my data has been saving.
Have you been saving it to your Z drive?
Is that like the thing that you plug in?
Uh-uh.
Ever here? Yeah, but it's not there.
Let me pause this and then I'll come around. Okay, so I was talking about interest rates. Prime rate right now I think is, what is it? 4.5, something like that. Anybody know? Somebody type it into your computer. New York Prime. Tell me what it is right now. You guys have the technology, Google or Bing or whichever you want to use.
Steakhouse? The steakhouse?
4.75. The steakhouse sounds better though. Yeah. New York Prime. Yeah, that would be a good cut of meat probably. But yeah, 4.75. Local banks are probably going to charge anywhere from 2.5 to 3 over prime. But even so, at 2.5 over prime, what are you at? 6, 7.25. Okay, which might fit. I have no idea why the credit card debt would only be 7%, but commercial loans might be at that 6.5 to 7.5% range probably right now. You can sure call your bank and find out. SBA, if you get like an SBA guaranteed loan, the last I knew is that the max a place could charge on an SBA guaranteed loan was 2.75 over prime. Okay, so if we're at 4.75 again, you're at 7.5. Then would be the 2.75 would be the max. Okay, and these things could be competitive, so it might be less than that even. Mortgage loans would typically be less. Okay, mortgage loans would typically be less. The reason for that, the collateral is usually deemed to be superior, right? Real estate tends to not depreciate. Okay, if as a bank, just a little banking history, if you lend money to somebody that buy a bunch of restaurant equipment, okay, if they default 6 months later, the bank would be lucky to get 50% on the dollar, probably more like 10 cents on the dollar if they repossessed it and sold it. Real estate's a little bit different. It holds its value a little bit better, even in repossessions and whatnot. A little bit better. Okay. I digressed a little bit there, sorry, but I wanted to go back and show you that. So what should you do? Call a banker. See what they say. The bigger the loan, generally, the smaller the interest rate, the lower the interest rate. Okay, the smaller the loan, generally, the bigger the interest rate. Collateral has a big effect on interest rates. That's why I thought the credit cards right now, I'll bet you most of them are double digits still. 10, 12, 14, 18%. Credit cards like to sting you if you're gonna borrow.
Trying to get me to get her closer to that 26%.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, yeah. If you'll pay it, they'll charge it. They're good about that. So yeah. And a lot of times, I don't know, they're not as aggressive marketing as they used to be, but I'm sure they still send out things that, 0% interest for 90 days. Transfer all your credit card debt to us and 0% interest for 90 days, and then they neglect to tell you that after the 90 days it's going to go up to 26% or whatever the heck it is. So, yeah. Okay, so our next step is going to be the payroll. And you can see kind of, and I think I also have additional inputs on this. We got payroll year one, and then we got payroll in subsequent years. Okay, and there are some adjustments that we have to make on these, and I'll walk you through those hopefully. So, first thing, and those of you that had me for finance know this: unless you are a C corporation, and most of you probably would choose not to be a C corporation, okay, for a lot of reasons. Unless you are a C corporation, you will not be an employee. Okay, so where it says owners as a employee, you're going to leave that blank. Okay, let me be more emphatic about that. On this row 8 where it says owners, if you're going to put a number in there, you got to get my permission first. How's that? Okay. Owners get paid differently. Okay, and we'll see that when we do the cash flow. Okay, owners take an owner's withdrawal. They don't get paid a paycheck. Okay, there's a reason for that, and the reason is this: every other entity other than a Schedule C, you're going to pay as an owner. You're going to pay taxes on the full amount of profit, assuming there is a profit, or get the benefit of the loss against your other taxes, possibly. Okay, no matter how the business does. Okay, no matter how much you take out of the business, you're going to pay taxes on the full amount of profit that business makes. So if the business makes 100 grand of profit and you only take out 20 grand, you're still paying taxes on 100 grand. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with what you took out. And so that's why it's different. Okay, the other part of that is, you know, you're not going to do the withholding and do a payroll thing and all that stuff for you when you don't have to. And in some cases, you're going to be the only maybe worker. Hesitate to call you employee then. You may be the only person in your business. And if you're the only person in your business, you're going to have nothing up here. Okay? And that will show up when we get to the cash flow, that owner's withdrawal. Okay? So again, unless you get my permission, please don't put anything in there as owners. Full-time employees. Again, number. You're going to have to make some guesstimates there. Full-time would generally be considered those that work over 30 hours a week, 40 hours max, right? Okay, so you're going to have 2 employees, you know, average hourly pay, you know, what are you going to pay them per hour? $12.50. Okay, estimated hours per week, well, one's going to work 30 and one's going to work 40, so I'm going to do 45, or 35, sorry. It fills in a lot of the rest of it for me. Okay, I will say this: where this can get to be a bit tricky is if you got a seasonal business, because this fills it in as if every month is the same. Okay, but you can see that we can make changes over here because it's a goal. So if you've got kind of a seasonal business and you're making some payroll, we can go ahead and make some changes. These formulas are kind of connected, and so we got to mess around with it a little bit. Just holler at me. It's not difficult at all, but we do got to do a little messing around on that. Part-time, same thing if you've got part-time. Okay. Independent contractors, you may have some independent contractors that work for you on a regular basis. Some pizza places, their delivery people are independent contractors. Okay, some of them are. Okay, so you might have something like that. Okay, most of you probably wouldn't have independent contractors. They're going to be kind of steady. Yeah.
Are like website developers considered independent contractors?
They might be, and don't confuse that though with an expense. Okay, and that's a little bit of a gray area. I'm going to tell you, it's probably easier to show that as an expense. In other words, if I were gonna hire somebody to do some web development for me, I'd probably just pay them a straight. You know, it's going to be XYZ company, and I'm going to pay them $300 a month or something to develop and maintain my website. That's going to show up in my operating expenses and not here. Okay. If I had somebody that was going to come on site maybe for 5 hours a week and work on my website and do that, that might be where I would call them an independent contractor instead. And if I was paying them $20 an hour for the hours that they came in, okay, it's again, it's a bit of a gray area, and we could probably classify them either way, and neither one would necessarily be right or wrong. So, okay. You get that. This stuff's all put in for you. It's kind of nice. Anybody know why they got 128,400 there in Social Security? Man.
Once you start making above that, they put tax on it.
Yeah. Social Security is the most regressive tax that the U.S. has, because rich people that make more money, 128,000, they don't have to pay any Social Security tax on anything above that. I think they still pay Medicare, maybe. But I'm not, because there is no limit there. So they continue to pay Medicare tax, but they don't pay any Social Security tax above that. Okay. This is what the because the employer pays, when you get to Social Security, right? Employee pays half, employer pays half. Totals 15.3% when we're talking about Social Security and Medicare. Okay. Employee pays 7.65%, employer pays 7.65%. Okay. Federal unemployment and state unemployment tax, and it kind of automatically figures that for you. Employee pension programs, probably none of you small businesses do not typically have any pension programs. Okay. Workers' compensation. Now we get here, you are going to have to put a number in there for me. Okay, and you're going to put it in here as a percent. Okay, as a percentage. And the reason that one's left blank and they haven't pre-filled that is because workers' comp varies greatly depending on the type of business that you have. Okay, if you're running a consulting firm that's consulting for bookkeeping or something, that's pretty low risk. Okay, your workers' comp is probably going to be a couple percent. And we might be able to look these numbers up. I've tried. It's a little difficult to ferret these numbers out, and this might be a case where a person has to call bear paw. Okay, if you're a roofing contractor, your workers' comp rate might be as high as 100%. Okay, that's dangerous. Being up on roofs and hanging shingles and doing that kind of stuff. What's that mean? If you're paying somebody $15 an hour, you're going to be paying another $15 an hour into the state for workers' comp. So when that person falls and hurts themselves and can't go to work for the next 6 months, they'll get some compensation, right? So this really varies. Think about the type of business that you're doing. If you have employees, okay, and then you'll need to put in a percentage there, okay? And again, you could kind of put in a marker now. You could change the background color if you want, so you know that maybe I got to do a little checking on that, a little research, see what we can find out. Okay. Employee health insurance. If you intend to provide some health insurance benefits, you could sure do that. They have it as a percentage. I could see you putting it in as a dollar figure. You know, if I had 2 full-time employees, maybe I would just give them $200 a month towards their health insurance. You know, you could do something like that. Okay. Other employee benefit programs, if you were going to do a 401k, which would not be unusual, you might do something like that. Generally speaking, what companies would do is they'll do a match. So I'll match you 100% up to 3% of your salary. So I'm going to do 3%, you're going to do 3%. So if that were the case, I'd put 3% in there, and it would automatically calculate that for me. Okay, that would not be unusual. There's I could spend a semester talking about the whole. Well, maybe not a semester, but a couple weeks anyhow, talking about all the various types of benefit, retirement benefit type programs there are for small businesses. There's SEP and simple IRAs and 401ks and on and on. Okay, and I'll try not to make it that complicated. So, but if you wanted to offer something like that, and that would not be unusual, put in a couple percent there maybe. Okay. Again, we get over here and it recalculates this, okay, or it does all these calculations for you, and it's fine. What I'm going to tell you that a lot of people find they want to change, and I encourage you to change it maybe, is this, that, you know, it's projecting on your full-time employees that in year 2 you're going to give them a 20% raise. You guys are really nice, okay, and that in year 3 you're going to give them a 30% increase. Man, they better be damn good workers, right? Okay, so you may not want to be that aggressive, okay? You may want to change this to 5%, okay? and you may want to change this to 5%. Okay. Now the problem with it, and the way they have this calculation in here, this is going to go up 5%, but they're still estimating that your Social Security and stuff's all going to go up 20%. So we got to match that up. So if I'm going to do 5% up there, I got to do 5% down here. Okay. This represents the increases, okay, for all of those over the prior year, over year one. Okay. So same thing, I'd have to change all these to 5%. And in these ones, you don't, this gets kind of mind-boggling sometimes, but you don't have to enter it in as 0.05. You can just put in the 5 and it converts it to 5%. So, okay. Your part-time employees, if you have some, okay, my advice would be to keep the increases the same. That way it's going to be the same down here, right? Otherwise we got to put in a little bit more complicated formula. And we could do that. And if you really insist, I'll come around and we'll spend 20 minutes and put in a little bit more complicated formula. But my advice would be to keep these increases the same. And then if you change it down here, you're going to be fine. Okay. That's same thing here. You might want to change this to 5% if you're going to have a additional benefit. Any questions about that? Okay. Your workers' comp, again, you might change that. It's probably going to grow proportionate to your other increases. So why they have it so much different? It may differ a little bit, workers' comp, in terms of its growth rates, but I don't think so. Okay, so second year payroll should be pretty simple, other than you make some of those changes in terms of the increases. You might have to make some changes all the way down. Additional inputs. Talk about that for a little bit. They've got some default numbers in here, and again, this really depends on your type of business. So, company, 1, accounts receivable, paid within 30 days. Let's see. You're thinking of having a pizza place. How many people, Desmond, are going to pay you when they come in and get their pizza? Just about all of them. Okay. So you're probably going to have very little accounts receivable. You're going to get like 100% payment within, the first 30 days, obviously, because you're going to get paid right away. So you're going to change these. This always has to add up to 100%. But you might say this. You might say, well, I'm going to go 90%. This I got to change to 0. This I got to change to 0. But you know what? I may end up having people write me some bad checks or some things like that. So I may leave a couple percent in there as an allowance for bad debt because I might get a bad check here or there or something. Okay, and that would make some sense. Okay, and then you could copy that over because that's probably going to stay pretty much the same, depending on your type of business. Wiley, how are you going to get paid?
I don't know. It's like kind of hard to say.
You're,
Finance, I guess.
yeah, you're probably going to bill people. I would guess that and a lot of them are going to pay you within that 30 days, but you're going to have some. And also, I've found, or I see with lawyers and accountants both, that, they sometimes don't bill you until all the work's done. And so they may do 6 months worth of work, and, those expenses are adding up during that whole 6 months, and then they bill you at the end of 6 months, and then you get paid 60 days after that. So, yours may be way different than Desmond's for sure, right? Okay. And so you kind of be thinking about that in terms of your individual businesses, right? Okay. Some people, some businesses insist on getting paid in advance, and some people get paid in arrears. You're doing daycare, right, Randy? Yeah. Yours, I don't. What do most daycares do? Do you know?
They send invoices every 2 weeks, so they get billed, but a lot of people don't pay.
They're slow. Yeah. So you might have a bunch within 30 days, and then a bunch between 30 and 60 days. Yeah. And maybe some bad debt there too, right?
Most likely, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So think about your own business, how you get paid, and make some good estimates based on that. Because this has a lot to do with your cash flow when we get to cash flow, so it's good to see. And then accounts payable, same thing, kind of when you're going to pay your bills, right? And again, it might well depend on the types of things you have coming in, Wiley, you're not going to have very many accounts payable because you don't have a lot of supplies or inventory or anything like that, right? You know, so it's not probably going to matter a heck of a lot how much you change that. Whereas, you know, Desmond's going to have a lot of inventory, you know, sauce and you know, all kinds of different things. Okay, you're not going to have hardly any inventory, but still, you might have some because you're going to have some supplies and whatnot that you're going to have to order. How are you going to pay those? Are you going to wait and pay them between 30 and 60 days? Or are you going to pay them, you know, when you get the bill? And some companies that you do business with may insist that you pay them right away. You may pick up most of your supplies at Walmart, so you got to pay it right away then, right? Okay, so think about that, how you're going to pay those things. Line of credit assumptions. Most people would not want their cash balance to go down to zero before the line of credit kicks in. You know, they may want to keep a little balance in there just because. So if you decide you'd like to do that, you know, a round figure of 500 or 1,000 or 1,500, you know, might be appropriate to put in there. Line of credit interest rate, that may not be that far off. You know, lines of credit sometimes are a little less than other types of loans. So, you know, maybe in that 6 to 7%, 8% wouldn't be all that far off. This stuff will probably, you don't need to mess with too much. The assumption or the thing that you might put in here is this: if in your business, and this might, Seth, this might be you. Year 2, you think you're going to do a little expansion, or you think you're going to do a little upgrading, or you think you're going to add some equipment to what you currently have, okay? And, you know, maybe it's a $5,000 something, a gizmo, because I don't know anything about mechanics, so it's a gizmo, okay? You'd put that $5,000 here. This is a capital purchase. Okay, and those things could happen in certain businesses that you may be able to plan ahead a little bit for. Okay, this first year you may want to add it in month 6, and that's fine. You're going to add your gizmo in month 6 because you're not going to be doing stuff on harvest equipment until July, and so no sense buying something until July, and so month 6 or 7, then you're going to spend 10 grand on your gizmo. Could be. Okay. And so you would add those types of capital purchase amounts, the full amount. If it's a $10,000 gizmo, you just put $10,000 in there. Again, the program will do the rest of it. What it's doing is just adding that to your equipment, and it's starting a depreciation thing on that, right? It's also taking it out of your cash flow, and so it'll show up on your cash flow statement, okay, where your line of credit may kick in if you don't have enough cash flow to pay for it, those types of things. But that's fine. We address that on the cash flow. Okay. Effective income tax rate. Okay, everybody, if you've got your program open right now, do this. Change that to 0. Why is that? Well, remember how I was talking about you're not an employee yourself, okay, because you're going to pay taxes on the whole amount of the profit yourself. Okay, the business does not have any taxes because you're paying those personally. Unless, here's the big unless, and if you tell me that you want to be a Schedule C for some reason or another, Schedule C corporations pay taxes separately. Okay, they do have a separate income tax. Every other entity does not have a separate income tax. They're called pass-through or flow-through entities. The tax burden or tax benefit flows through or passes through to the owner or owners. Okay, that's partnerships, LLCs, LCs, LPs, you name it. Okay, C corporations would pay taxes, but virtually none of you would be C corporations. While you have it open and on this page, amortization period in years, please change that to 1. Oh, those buggers! I got to go up and do my unprotect sheet, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know why that one's protected. This is just a bit of a hang up on my part, a little bit, okay, and that is that for virtually all of us, our startup costs, okay, you can amortize those, and it's saying that you could amortize those over 3 years. Most businesses would not do that. Okay, they just amortize their startup costs in the first year, and most of those startup costs are year 1 costs anyhow. You know, your advertising, pre-opening salaries, those types of things, okay? And so I ask that you change this to 1 year so that those costs get amortized away in that first year. Yeah.
How do you unlock it again?
Okay. Go up to review. Click on that. Where it says protect sheet, maybe it says unprotect sheet, because I've already unprotected mine, so it might say unprotect sheet right up here. Click on that. Yeah, mine's bringing up something. Password to unprotect sheet is just 1, 2, 3, 4. And then click OK. Okay, any questions? So we've done the payroll and additional inputs for today, and that's kind of all I wanted to hit today anyhow. Get you guys working on that. I'm going to come around individually and look at everybody's. Where's Kayvon today? That bugger. Because I was going to have him tell us what goes on tonight. Anybody know what happens tonight?
Basketball game between Crofton.
We play, yeah, basketball. MSU Northern Armory Gymnasium, 6 o'clock women, 8 o'clock guys. What happened last night?
We beat Carroll.
Both women and men beat Carroll. Great games, too. They were both wonderful games, a lot of fun to watch. I think the games tonight will be just as exciting. UP's got some good teams. They beat us last time, too, and as did Carroll, and yet we came back and whipped up on Carroll this time, so it was pretty satisfying. Fun game to watch, too. Both games were just, they stayed close the whole way. So plan on going, supporting your lights, skylights. I'll sign off for now and come around, and I want to kind of check everybody individually, see how you're coming